You guys seem to enjoy my last exotic weapons concept video, so today I'm making a sequel to that video, and yeah, that's about it. If you happen to enjoy this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing and using code WATSOG in the Fortnite item shop. And yeah, that's about it. Let's get straight into the video. Alright, so kicking off this video, we have the first new exotic weapon here. We have the Lawless Plasma Railgun. So while charging up the Lawless Plasma Railgun, the laser will act similarly to the laser from a plasma burst laser, dealing constant damage with a small explosion every few seconds. Obviously an exotic version of the railgun, and yeah, basically it just makes the railgun do extra damage essentially. It'll act the same as normal railgun except that laser part. Just it gives the railgun bonus damage basically, which solid addition in my opinion. You know, when thinking about what an exotic railgun could do, this was pretty obvious. We take a laser weapon and then give it the effect of a different laser weapon. Seems pretty easy, seems pretty obvious in my opinion, you know? And I feel like this would just be a better version of the plasma burst laser already, because this weapon's a sniper and the plasma burst laser has horrible range. Like it literally like cuts off after a little bit, which kind of sucks. So basically having that effect with infinite range, because that's a sniper, would be nice. It would be nice. Be an improvement on the plasma burst laser, in my opinion. Next up, we have the Lawless Blizzard Launcher. The Lawless Blizzard Launcher would shoot blizzard grenades instead of normal explosive rockets, creating small blizzards that deal constant damage and slow down your opponents. Obviously, an exotic version of the quad launcher, and if you don't remember what the blizzard grenades were, those are like the chiller grenades that were from the last Winterfest, so the Chapter 6 Winterfest, and they were interesting to say the least. I don't know how good they really were, but I feel like this would be an interesting effect for an exotic weapon. You know, kind of parallels the big chill, which is a snowball launcher that shoots chiller grenades. This would be a quad launcher that shoots blizzard grenades. So both versions of the chiller grenade have their own like launcher weapon now, which I think it's be pretty interesting. I don't know how good this weapon would actually be, but you know, it's worth trying out. Also, this would be the second exotic quad launcher, so it doesn't really need to have a truly amazing weapon already, because it already has an exotic version. So this would just be a fun addition. Next up, we have the Lawless Chain Repeater Rifle, and this one I think would be a bit broken, but you guys will just have to let me know what you think. The Lawless Chain Repeater Rifle will create chain explosives for every enemy hit by the initial explosion of the weapon. The initial explosive is as strong as it normally is, however, the chain explosives will do half the damage. So basically that first explosion does, I don't know how much it does like off the top of my head, like I think it does like 90 damage total. I could be wrong about that, but it would do that, and then every like chain explosion it creates would do 45 after that. So you would hit the first person with it, and if they're close enough to another person and that explosion would hit them too, it would create another explosion. So the first explosion does 90, and then for every person that it hits, it would do an additional explosion for 45. So this weapon might be a bit broken, definitely very strong in like squads or something like that. It'd also be very good for taking out henchmen, because you could like hit a bunch of them at the same time. So this weapon would be kind of broken in my opinion. I think this would probably be the most broken exotic we'd have, and yeah, just very interesting idea for a weapon here, in my personal opinion. Next, we have the Lawless multishot minigun. Now, the Lawless multishot minigun will shoot 3 bullets simultaneously, similar to a shotgun, every time it fires. Each shot still only takes 1 bullet, and each bullet also has reduced damage to account for the 2 additional bullets it fires. Obviously, an exotic version of the minigun, and basically an easy way to think about this is, think about a minigun, but every shot it fires is a shotgun shot. So, yeah, I can imagine how strong this weapon would be. As I said, the bullets would do less damage. Each bullet would do less damage because it would shoot 3 at the same time. So it's not like you're getting like 60 damage per shot. But I think like maybe 30 damage per shot might be still really good. But each bullet's only doing like 10 damage. So, you know, you get 60 shots of 30 damage each split across 3 bullets. So, you know, solid weapon, I think. I think this would be pretty powerful. It's sort of similar to the Trinity assault rifle, except it's not like an ammo depleter, you know, like that weapon is. So yeah, be pretty good in my opinion. I think this would be a really solid weapon. Might even be better than the Mythic minigun. Who knows? I just think it could be better than that, in my opinion. You know, could be a really solid weapon. Next, we have the Lawless Thermite Flare Gun. When the Lawless Thermite Flare Gun's projectile explodes on a surface, it will spawn a thermite on whatever it explodes on. Obviously, an exotic version of the flare gun. And obviously a thermite, you know, it's what you throw in the vaults. It has like this like, is it really an explosion? I don't really know, but it creates like an area of like fire that like damages anyone who's in that like area, like fire zone. And basically this weapon would create that on the ground when it explodes. You can't create a thermite when it explodes in the air, so if you're shooting it up to get like recon or something, it's not going to spawn a thermite in the air, you know what I mean? But if you shoot it at like someone's builds, thermite will spawn. So I think that would be pretty solid. I don't know how effective it would be. This weapon would probably be like similar. This weapon would probably still be used in the same way that the normal flare gun is used, in my opinion, because the effect is sort of similar to what it already kind of does. But, you know, maybe, you know, if you're going for like a second vault, you could shoot this and, you know, you don't have to carry thermite around, and plus you get recon. So pretty good. And again, the thermite could also be really good for just destroying builds. Because we did have the fire effect on the last flare gun, but this one, you know, thermite effect, would be probably better because you could also like really effectively destroy metal and brick, which fire can't really do because it only like does that to wood. So, you know, pretty good effect in my opinion. All right, this one is a bit interesting. This is the Lawless Storm Burst Laser. When the Lawless Storm Burst Laser explodes, instead of making a tiny explosion, it will create a mini storm flip that always ticks for 10, no matter how much the actual storm is currently ticking for. This is obviously an exotic plasma burst laser, and yeah, this effect might be a little bit broken, a little bit annoying, but seems fun. And plus there's only one on the map, so, you know, don't have to worry about it too much. But this weapon might be a bit broken. You know, obviously creating a mini storm flip will always be crazy. You could also use this to like survive storm a little bit longer, because obviously storm flip flips the storm. So if you're in the storm, you shoot this, it'll create like a air bubble for you to breathe in, so you can actually like not take storm damage in the storm. So that would be pretty solid. And then obviously the storm storm flip effect out of the storm be pretty good for people who are just like camping in boxes, you know. So you just shoot this at their box, creates a storm flip, and then that you basically have to move. They are forced to rotate, so kind of disorients the opponent. So I think it's pretty solid, you know, pretty solid utility item in my opinion. I don't know how effective it would be for like actually killing someone, but as like a utility item, I think it would be pretty solid, you know. All right, this one, it's simple, but I think it'll be really good. This is the Lawless Rush Kneecapper. When sprinting with the Lawless Rush Kneecapper, you will be granted the Gold Rush effect until you are no longer sprinting. Obviously an exotic version of the Kneecapper, and basically this is just really good. This is just a Kneecapper, but you get the Gold Rush effect every time you use it. Basically a Kneecapper, but better in literally every single way. Like faster all the time. The Gold Rush effect, I believe, actually no, it doesn't knock back opponents. That's the medallion I'm getting confused with, but it's still really solid. And also you can combine this with the medallion to have like really fast movement speed, you know. Just really solid weapon here, you know. I'm also really happy with how the design kind of came out, because the kind of orange lightning around it, I know I'm not really talking about like the aesthetic of these weapons a lot, but the orange lightning around that looks really cool. But yeah, I think this would probably be the best like exotic. Like this would be like a must carry in like every game in my opinion. I just think it'd be really solid, you know. Just the best movement item easily, you know, my personal opinion. All right, this is probably the most out there idea for a weapon I have in this video. This will be the Lawless Jungle Mag AR. When reloading the Lawless Jungle Mag AR, a random jungle plant between the bomb flower, slurp plant, and stink flower will be applied to the weapon. When you fire the last shot in each clip, that plant's effect will occur. So basically, take it like this. Sort of think of it like the exotic unstable bow, where you shoot it and like it switches between each plant. So basically think about it like this. You reload it and it has the bomb flower effect, alright? So you shoot it, you empty the clip, and when that last shot is fired, an explosion happens because the bomb flower explodes. Then you reload it, slurp plant effect. When you shoot the last shot, a slurp plant like explodes and heals whatever. So it could be a good way to heal yourself. So if you get that slurp plant effect, free heals. And then you reload it again and the stink flower effect. So you shoot at someone's box, you know, last shot goes off, now they have a stink bomb on their box and they have to rotate. It's essentially a 3-in-1. However, I feel like the usefulness of this weapon is a bit iffy, given the slurp plant might not be what everyone is looking for in a weapon. However, you could just shoot it and then say the last shot and then just shoot it at the floor and then get some heals. So, you know, maybe it wouldn't be too big of a hindrance, but I feel like the usefulness of the weapon might be a bit questionable. But I think it's a fun idea. I think it's a fun gimmick, you know, and I think it'd just be a fun weapon overall, in my personal opinion. All right. Next, we have the Lawless Crypto Shotgun. Now, this weapon is very interesting on how it would actually work. The Lawless Crypto Shotgun does extra damage for how much gold and how many dill bits you have. It starts at a base of 30 body shot and 45 headshot if you have no gold or dill bits, and each each dill bit grants 20 more damage, and every 500 gold adds 10 damage. So think about it like this. So you have 5,000 gold, that is 100 damage right there, added on to it, because 5,000 divided by 500 is 10, and then 10 times 10, 100 damage. So you have 30 body shot, now you have 130 because you're adding 100 onto that. Then you have 3 dill bits because you get the 2 from the vault, and then you go to the black market and get the one from the black market chest. 3 dill bits right there. And now you have a total of 190 body shot. this weapon could really pack a punch in my personal opinion. In the headshot, it could one-shot headshot if you're like fully stacked out. So, you know, this weapon might be a bit broken, but you do have to have dilbits, so you can't really spend any of your dilbits on any other exotic if you want to keep that ability. So, you know, if you don't have any dilbits, it kind of caps out at 130. Kind of just has normal, like, infiltrator pump damage. Might be a bit higher. I think it's a bit higher. But having dilbits on you, really solid. Really solid. Basically makes the weapon the best shotgun ever. But it requires you to hold on to those dilbits and not spend them, which might not be what you want to do, so it makes you think. Obviously, an exotic version of the infiltrator pump shotgun, and yeah, this might be like the most actually good weapon on this list. So, could be interesting to see, you know? And then finally, just a nice little simple weapon here to close out the video. We have the Lawless Guzzle Burst SMG. When you eliminate an opponent with the Lawless Guzzle Burst SMG, you'll be granted the Guzzle Healing effect, and it will stop once you've been healed to the full white health or have been damaged. Obviously, it just applies the Guzzle Juice effect to you, which is an item I'm surprised you haven't seen any more of. It was like in one season of Chapter 3 and then completely forgotten. I think it might have came back last season or sometime in Chapter 5. If I remember, it came back at one point. Might have been in Reload too, I have no idea, but it came back at one point. So, it's just the item hasn't been in the game that much. That would be interesting to see have its effect applied to another weapon. So, Lawless Guzzle Burst SMG it is. Obviously, an exotic scope burst SMG, but yeah. That's the last weapon I have for this video. Alright, if you guys enjoyed that video, consider leaving a like and subscribing and using code WATSOG in the Fortnite item shop. And yeah, that's about it. See you in the next one. Later.